let's start a meetup. It was about 3 months after our podcast had started. And we said, we need to bring women together physically. It's great that we're talking to people on the podcast, but that's nothing like community building. So this woman walks in and she goes, and I'll just say her first name, Kristen. She goes, it was a lot for me to get here. We said, yeah, we get it. I had to get a babysitter. Like, it was a lot to coordinate just to get to that event that one night. She goes, I got a babysitter. My husband was over. She had young kids. And she had like maybe 2 properties at the time. She's got 20 properties now. And it's not just because of our community. It's because she is really growing her wealth and doing it with other people around her. And so there's just power in that, Ruben. And so for me, when Andres and I started InvestHER, we saw the need for other women. We also saw it for ourselves. I also had to look at my own life and go, what needs to change? Because I'm really passionate about what we do at InvestHER.
Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today I have the pleasure of having someone that I knew before I even knew her because of her ability to build such a strong brand. I always say that, brand is what people say when you're not in the room, right? Marketing is what you put out there, and brand is what people are saying when you're not in the room. I was in one of her chapters without even knowing the founder at the time, the co-founder behind all this. And what's so powerful is that not only are you doing this in your real estate model where you're empowering others to invest with you, but you've also built a community. She's built a community, not only in person, but also digitally, where there's more than 1 million plus downloads with her podcast called the Real Estate InvestHER show, now that I've given it away. And also, of course, we love a practitioner who is in true embodiment of doing the actual work and not just talking the talk, but walking the walk as well, with 130 million plus portfolio with the DeRosa Group, which we might know. I believe your husband is also Matt Faircloth, not to be mistaken, right? This is not a mistake.
Yes.
And I think it's amazing what you guys are doing in this community and what you've been able to do for all investors, but also giving a platform for the female, the InvestHER. So without further ado, Liz Faircloth, welcome to the lab. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ruben. Thank you so much for having me. Really a pleasure to be here with you, and so excited to connect tonight and just be of most help as I can here.
Absolutely. And I love that you're saying, I don't have too many people come on my show and say how, I want to be the most help. And I love that you're leading with that. And that says a lot about what you do, because that's what you do. You serve a lot of people. So if you and I meet, I was just telling you that we're going to be traveling. So I do travel a lot, and I always love to strike conversations. Love to communicate. If I sit next to you at the airport and I say, hey, nice to meet you. My name is Ruben. What do you do for a living, Liz? What do you lead with at this point?
Well, it's funny. I would say right now, I'd say what I actually believe. So I would say something like, I believe that it is a woman's birthright to be financially free. And so that is what we believe. And someone told me recently that to say, oh, I run a women's community, that doesn't even make any sense, really. It's not very clear what I do. It sounds kind of like I have like 10 women and I get together. But starting with what you believe, like that is what we believe. That is like the foundation for all the work, Ruben, that we do, is that we really truly believe that it is a woman's birthright to become financially free. And to really live life on her own terms. So everything else comes after that, and I think it's like an elevator speech, and you kind of intrigues people,
It does. I'm
I
intrigued.
probably would follow up with the women's community just so they're like, what,
Yeah.
but I would, starting with that is really like intrigue, and you want people to say, wow, it's interesting. Tell me more,
Yeah. Well, do tell us more, because it's one thing for, when I hear it, I think of one thing, but when you're putting that out there, and obviously your body of work has shown what it can do, what does that mean to you to
Yeah.
have this, a woman's birthright is to, from being financially free. What does that mean in your lens?
Yeah, in my lens, and where this passion kind of began for me, was about 20 years ago. I was actually getting my degree in social work,
Hmm.
and never actually became a social worker. But one class I took was an entrepreneur class, and it was all about starting a business. And so I wrote a business plan 20 years ago. And what I wanted to do was create a women's center that helped women that had both a mental illness and some sort of substance abuse, because those are the women that I was experiencing in my field placement.
Mm.
But what I found when I was there in grad school is all these women were sharing and connecting and kind of like, learning better ways to cope, learning better ways to live their life. We weren't talking about financial wealth, finances and wealth building and real estate investing, but we were just talking about living life on your own terms and having breakthroughs. And I said, wow, what if I was to build a center where women can come, they can go, but they can be part of this group and really support each other? That was literally 20 years ago.
Wow.
And that went on the shelf, never did anything with it. And here we are 20 years later. And my now business partner at the time, good friend, and I were partnered on deals, Ruben, and we go around and say, we go to these events, we go to meetups, we go to RIA meetings, and we really did feel like we were the only women there.
Mm.
And what a woman's journey is different than a man's journey, is different than everyone's journey, right? And so we really wanted to create a space for women to kind of talk, to share, to get the support they needed. But to do it on their own terms. It wasn't about like, how many doors can I own or how much wealth can I accumulate? It's about, what kind of lifestyle do I want to create? What kind of legacy am I leaving?
Yeah.
What kind of generational wealth am I building? That's what women care about. A lot of women care about. And how am I going to do that? And how can I get support from other like-minded women who are playing at the same level I am or want to even go further? And we looked around. There wasn't really a community like that 6 years ago. And so we started a podcast. And then that led us to doing meetups. We have 50 plus meetups across the country and in Canada. That led us doing a Facebook community, which we have about 16,000 women, free community.
Mm.
That led us to doing our mentorship program, which is for women growing their portfolios. And then that led us doing our InvestHER Con, which is 500 women, 30 speakers, 30 companies coming in Austin in June.
Wow.
All around the premise and the bottom line, as the women do have the birthright to become financially free and live life on their own terms. And some women, it's life or death. Some women are in relationships too long. Some women were never shown there's another way beyond just what, some sort of gender role told you that you should be doing or can be doing. So that's really the impetus of it. It's not about the knowledge, but it's about the community and having women that are buying properties and investing in properties and at the real driver's seat of their finances and investing, getting the support they need from other women.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about.
So love what you said about having this vision and almost shelving it, and then by law, as I believe, bringing it back into your universe and making it reality with your partner. And I believe, is your partner's name Andressa, or is that someone?
Yes.
Okay.
Her name is Andressa. Yep.
Andressa. So
Yep.
that
Our
was
co-founder and partner.
amazing.
Yep.
And so you and Andressa, you have this vision, and now you're making it happen. But let's talk about I'm big on mindset and I'm big on paradigm, right? What is it that is the biggest, limiting maybe belief or paradigm shift that you've seen as you're building this community of women, especially that you're talking about? I think, you mean it when you say it's a birthright. Like, what's the shift that needs to happen? What are maybe some limiting beliefs or maybe some norms that we often hear that you're trying to maybe even debunk, or maybe just show another side that we're not even paying attention to for the women listening?
There's so much, right? And let's go through some statistics, right?
Mhm.
So some current statistics right now, women control about $10 trillion of the U.S. economy. That's going to 30 trillion in the next 3 to 5 years. So literally within a few years, there's a wealth transfer happening. So whether women want it or not, it's happening, right? From an inheritance perspective, from a death perspective, from a accumulation perspective. So more and more it's happening, right? This shift of kind of financial wherewithal. Yet women statistically have confidence in managing the household, right? Traditionally, I'm being very traditional, but like 79% of women are very confident in managing finances. That number goes to 29% when it comes to making investing decisions.
Oh,
When it
so
comes
that's
to
actually a very interesting statistic. So you're saying 79% actually feel, you're saying management of the household or management of the finances at home.
correct, managing the finances or the household
That's
finances.
very interesting.
And I mean, again, this is Fidelity,
Hmm.
according to Fidelity, and then that percent of confidence goes down significantly when it comes to making investment decisions, which has
Mm,
been traditionally in the hands of their, if they have a male counterpart, right, or partner, or it just goes to a financial planner or somebody outside of themselves.
yeah.
And so, and then you go back to the stats, and that actually women do outperform men statistically when they do invest. So it's not that women don't make
Mm,
good investors. Women make great investors. They're just not doing it enough. They're not doing it
wow.
often enough. And I think about my own family, right? And who did I see? I mean, my parents were both like super hardworking. Love my parents. I grew up in like, New Jersey,
Mhm.
middle class Italian, heritage family. And my mom worked part-time. She was like the glue of the family. She was very the one that was like, hold everyone together, right?
Yeah.
Then you see that as a feminine quality. My dad he handled the finances. And when it came to investments, we didn't talk about investments at all. I don't remember those discussions. But later in life, they ended up buying a rental property, one rental property, and it was my dad driving it. So is that because of his skill set? Is that because of gender roles? Who knows? It could be a little bit of both. And
Mm,
and that's, the bottom line, I think, and so often is women and men certainly have the ability to become very good investors and take the control back versus giving it away to people that are making these decisions for you.
mhm.
I think more and more women want to, they're outliving men 6 to 7 years. The wealth transfer is happening. So the confidence needs to be there too to be able to make those decisions. And it's not because they don't want to or need to. I just don't think there's been a ton of role models, to be perfectly frank.
Mm,
They don't have a lot of girlfriends on their block who are like talking about the next real estate project.
right.
You got to go seek these communities out like ours.
Mhm.
Um, I don't talk about that with my neighbors, and I love them. They're all wonderful people, but I don't chat about real estate deals or how I'm looking to buy a business
Yeah.
or how I'm looking to bring in a new, person in my company to help me grow so we can serve more women. I'm not having those conversations locally.
Yeah. So that's so interesting because one of it is it's it's almost how it's been level set, and then one is also repetition and flexing the muscle and having that prevalent conversation. And so that's the gap that you've bridged. It's essentially, it's let's actually make this more of a common conversation. Let's actually bring like-minded people together, that actually are willing to have that conversation, and then let's flex this muscle as much as possible, because it's, confidence comes from, doing the reps, and then at the same time seeing someone else, that is has done it the way you are, again, an embodiment and a testament of that. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, especially with your partner, and then how does that also, at home, how have do things shift? And because I understand
Yeah.
you and Matt obviously built an empire as well together, and so how does that look? How does that kind of how did you get started initially, for someone who's listening? Be like, okay, great, I can go to like the Real Estate InvestHER kind of meetups, and then what would that step look like? And I think it'd be nice to parallel as well. What did it look like for you? And in hindsight, what would you change?
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think it does take, we always talk about moving the needle,
Hmm.
you know, um, and when you move the needle and take one action step, it really does make a big difference. I'll say though, from a, I want to just preface what I'm going to share too, is that women like create magic when they're doing it in groups.
Mm,
You saw that last summer. You saw Wall Street Journal came out with an article said women owned the summer. So what they talked about was the amount of money and revenue that was generated from Beyonce's concert tour, from the Barbie movie,
yeah,
and from Taylor Swift.
yeah.
And they basically said because of these three entertainment avenues of the summer, the economy was literally owned by women and driven by women.
Mm.
Because one woman didn't go see Barbie, she took her friends. One woman didn't go see Beyonce or go see Taylor Swift. They went with their friends. So they coined this term called the women's multiplier effect. So when women are doing things in groups, you see this with the mud runs, you see this with fundraisers, right?
Yep.
Women go together and you see this phenomenal spirit, right?
Yep.
It's the same thing. We're bringing that energy and that way of being to investing. Women go to the bathroom together, not literally in the stall, but you're like, Mary, Sue, you want to go to the bathroom? Like
Yeah.
they go in a group to the bathroom. Men don't do that.
Yeah.
So I say that because there's such power in the group, in not group think, but in the power of the group, that if we put that same energy into what we're creating with InvestHER and saying, you know what, I want to take control of my finances. I want to take control of my financial future and leave a legacy for my family. Okay, great. I can do that with other women too. Like that's the kind of energy that we're really creating. And that we see that in so many different aspects of society. We're just trying to bring that same fun, engaging, energy to the investing side. So I know that wasn't completely the answer, but I wanted to say that. So as I preface to answer your question, the getting started is just taking that first step to go to a meetup. Real quick, I'll tell you a story of a woman that I remember our first meetup. We started in Philadelphia. So me and Andressa were like, let's start a meetup. It was about 3 months after our podcast had started. And we said, we need to bring women together physically.
Yeah.
It's great that we're talking to people on the podcast, but that's nothing like community building. So this woman walks in and she goes, and I'll just say her first name, Kristen. She goes, it was a lot for me to get here. We said, yeah, we get it. I had to get a babysitter. Like it was a lot to coordinate just to get to that event that one night. She goes, I got a babysitter. My husband was over. It was this. She had young kids, and she had like maybe 2 properties at the time. She's got 20 properties now.
Wow.
And it's not just because of our community. It's because she is really growing her wealth and doing it with other people around her. And so there's just power in that, Ruben. And so for me, when Andres and I started InvestHER, we saw the need for other women. We also saw it for ourselves. I also had to look at my own life and go, what needs to change? Because I'm really passionate about what we do at InvestHER. It's 7:00 Eastern time or 7:30 Eastern time.
Yep.
So I say yes a lot when it comes to our community, because if one woman's listening to this, Ruben, and I'm going to impact her, that's a big deal to me, right? That's important to me. And so I also had to look at my own household and say, and have conversations with my husband. And I use this term: with your partner, you have to renegotiate the contract, meaning, and it's a tool to say, okay, even just from a household perspective, who's doing what, who owns what, and how you might need to shift and renegotiate if you want to spend some time, learning about investing, or you want to spend some time, whatever the other thing is. And so for me, I realized one day, Ruben, really quickly, that I was doing about 90% of the household, because that was just what was handed to me, right? That was just handed as a female in a heterosexual relationship. That was what was handed to me. That is what you do. You take care of mostly everything in the house.
Yeah.
And so I said to Matt, we really needed, and I remember having a conversation with Andressa, and I'm like, wow, I'm doing pretty much everything. And we just really had this honest, raw conversation. And we listed everything. I even have like a tool now, because it helped me so much. I want to give it to other people. We listed all the household tasks, and we really negotiated who's owning what, because it's the mental load, Ruben.
Yeah.
It's not just the doing.
Oh, yeah.
It's the mental load. I don't want to have to do the thinking and the doing and the coordinating.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
It's taking brain, like it's space.
Brain cells.
Exactly.
So we went from 90 to, I think, probably like 60-40, where I am 60, he's 40, but he orders the food. He handles dinner every night. If there's a night that he can't, he gets me involved, but we have really shifted a lot. So it frees me up. I had a big thing I needed to finish before dinner tonight. I just worked up until 6:00, and he handled dinner and the kids. So I say that because it does take release at home and getting support at home.
Yes.
To then be able to give yourself the space and the time to say, okay, what in my professional or my investing life do I want to create space for?
Yeah.
To go to that meetup, to call that, to post on the Facebook group, to carve out 3 days and go to Austin and to be around all these amazing like-minded women. I mean, it takes courage and it takes focus.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that because um it's so good to call out the fact that there is that additional um challenge to even just show up to a meetup. Like these are things that sometimes men don't have to think about because they're freed in the sense that that's not even expected. That it's kind of like you said, it's this paradigm that we've been handed. And I think it's a really important what you said is to revisit that, and it's important for women to have that conversation at home because it is a partnership, and we can see the power. I see the power that happens when you know it's not just for the male to be financially, in the getting the reps in. It's beneficial for the entire family.
Yeah.
So I think when you're thinking about that, just listening to them, it makes me even think just, wow, I think you echoed it very well and you highlighted in your um relationship in your household and your empire. What is the message? And I don't want to make this like what should we tell men, but I think one of the things you asked me is I hope that this will be helpful, and I want to ask it because I'm privileged to be in this position is how can we better support our partners? And it could go for any, whether you're heterosexual or whatever it is.
Yeah. Sure.
It could go
Sure.
for
Yeah.
any way. So if we just use that word partner, how best can you support your partner in addition to reviewing the and renegotiating the contract? Is there other areas too that you've seen have really helped women kind of almost have a springboard to the success? Because like you said, there's a lot of things to overcome
Yeah.
at home that maybe there's a complete oversight to a man who might be
Yeah.
listening to this has no idea.
I would say there's a concept, and I
Mhm.
think the concept is really delineating between like what does somebody own and what is somebody supportive with. And often my husband would say to me, just let me know what you need help with. I'll help you. I'll help you. And I appreciate his energy towards it, right? He wants to really
Mhm.
help. But in a lot of ways, it really was frustrating to hear that. And I think honestly, women are frustrated hearing the help in the sense like, okay, now I have to think about, I still own it. I still own the groceries. Now I have to think about
Delegating.
where where you can jump in. It's like it's not really bringing any sort of it's the mental load. I think
Oh
that's the
wow.
biggest.
Okay, that's interesting, Liz. I see where you're going with that because it's like when a new investor, it's almost like when you reach out to somebody who you admire and you
Yes.
say, "Hey, how can I help?" That in itself is a task to
Now I
ask.
have to think
Have
about
to think
how
about
I
how you can
yeah.
help me. Rather, it's
Hey,
analyzing, seeing, and saying, Liz, it seems that I could completely take this off your hands based on what I've seen. You come at this time, etc.
correct.
So it's kind of
You
that's more
nailed it.
supportive rather than saying, "How can I help? Tell me how I can help you." It sounds like now I have to
Yeah.
tell you, and I have to do like, okay, wow, that's a paradigm shift right there, Liz. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
highlighting that. That's
Yeah, and it's the ownership. So the concept of ownership
mm,
is really about I owned I own this. So my husband, like, give a real example. I own food shopping and dinner and food. He really owns food in our family. So that means shopping for the food.
mhm,
That means preparing most meals, except for breakfast. I usually do that. So it means like the owning is like I don't have to do it all. We get Instacart, we get support,
yeah,
right? We go out to dinner sometimes, right? Um, but the key is I'm responsible to ensure that happens. That's what ownership means.
mm,
So to be supportive in a relationship means you've taken the thinking, the planning, the who we're going to delegate it to, how to automate it. I don't care what happens. I don't care how the food gets here, type of we just want to eat. We just want to have healthy food, right? We just want the output. So that delineation and that conversation I had with my husband was really powerful
mhm,
because he really thought he was being helpful. And it was just like, honey, I can't tell you again how you can help. This, we got to like, you own this and
yeah,
you let me know how I can help you sometimes,
yeah,
kind of thing.
mm,
And then vice versa. I think in life, I think I'll see sometimes, and Andressa and I are really good like this with each other, but I'll see her a little overwhelmed with something. And I said, you know what? The call that's at 7 o'clock, take this one out. Sit this one out. I got the call. It's not necessary, but we're both on it. we're good there. So I released her from. Now I could have said, what can I do to support you? You seem a little overwhelmed. I just told her not to come to that call. And I knew that that's what
That would release.
Oh, great. I'm going to step out of that. And, I think we can do that more for the people in our life. I think we could do that more for our partners.
Yeah.
I think our partners can do that more for us. And honestly, Ruben, people don't talk about this kind of
I
stuff.
know.
I don't think they just don't.
I know.
They talk about random things, and certainly, talk about the latest Netflix show. I
Yeah.
love to talk about random things sometimes, but relationships, you got to create space
Yeah.
on an ongoing basis that you're talking about what's working, what's not,
Yeah.
and what needs to get renegotiated. Because if not, resentment builds and you have a long list on people,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't help with relationships,
Experiment Nation, you've heard the word MTR, midterm rentals, as it is currently a hot topic and hot commodity right now because, again, there has been an increase in short-term rental regulations, and there also has been, let's face it, a slowdown in what we were experiencing a couple years back when it comes to bookings. So with that said, short-term rental operators are looking for alternative solutions to tap into the midterm rental space. However, there is a sub niche of midterm rental insurance that I'm truly excited about, that I want to share with you, that the experience that we've had, the tremendous results we've been able to have, and that's the insurance midterm rental space, which is very different than your traditional midterm rentals. When you think of traditionally midterm rentals, you think of travel nurses. There is a space, midterm rental insurance space, that we've tapped in, where you need to be well connected with insurance and relocation specialists and companies and understand the right type of asset required for you to be able to help these families. What's really important that stands out the most, which you can get in what I'm about to offer you, is the understanding where to be found by these insurance companies, how to properly manage your calendar so that your listings are optimized so that they can find you, how to actually gain traction and build a relationship with these relocation insurance companies. I've put together an MTR insurance blueprint. That's MMTRRR insurance blueprint to cover these foundations after we've had success landing very large contracts on single family homes that literally 4x what we traditionally make in long-term rentals, and also gives us peace of mind because there's less turnover and 100% occupancy, because these contracts can start anywhere from 30 days to 3 months to 8 months and range anywhere from, again, we've landed anywhere from $8,000 to $9,000 a month in per month on a single family home property, which our mortgages are typically around the $2,400 range, which then gives you a large spread of anywhere from 4 to 6K net on just one property. And this is why it's very hot right now. But people who haven't been in the lab with individuals like myself, like Jesse Vasquez and Dr. Rachel Gainsborough and Noble Crawford, don't have the foundations and don't know exactly where to start. And therefore, this is why I'm giving you guys a blueprint, the MTRR insurance blueprint. Go to the website, experimentrealestate.com, and get yourself a blueprint to completely change, or at least have a plan B if you're a short-term rental operator looking to maximize your occupancy and profitability. We'll see you on the other side. 100%. And I couldn't agree more. And my key takeaway from that is being proactive in a relationship and not reactive, right? And stepping in and supporting and not being a burden. Let's talk about the relationship and partnership that you've been able to build. Do you say that those same fundamentals at home, that you build in your household, are the same core values that you then take to raise capital, that you then take to partner? Like, does that transfer over as the same kind of like setting expectations, communication, or do you see that as a little bit different, where actually in the corporate world, or I should say when you have a corporation like you and you're trying to buy businesses, now you're more thinking of like who can, you're thinking of the who, but like you're thinking of filling in the gaps. Like, tell me about how you're building your team, how you're creating these strategic partnerships. Is it the same? Is it different? How do you see that process for, again, any investor who's listening out there wants to get to that level where there's strength in numbers?
Yeah, I think there's different levels of relationship, right?
Mhm.
If you have a contractor and you're trying them for the first time on your rental property,
Mhm.
do you need to have these like super deep conversations with them? I don't know. But you may not need to, right? You don't need to know how they're working on themselves personally, and what are they really working towards in their life goals. I mean, I do think though, if that's a contractor you want to build a business with, you do need to have those conversations.
Yeah.
I often say there's like transactional relationships, there's transformational
Ooh.
relationships. And so if and Jess and I are 50-50 partners in this company that started out as a passion. It's a community, it's a movement. This is a much bigger energy than just this company Hair and I put together, and we're just we're very passionate, we're very committed to the mission of what we stand on. That takes a transformational relationship.
Yeah.
So we've had breakdowns in our relationship. We've had a lot of breakthroughs. One thing I'll tell you, Ruben, when you're building that transformational partnership, relationship, business or personal, hopefully all personal gets there. Um, you need to work on yourself, and you really need to do. The more you work on yourself, I think it also propels your growth of your business
Mhm.
and growth of what is in front of you. So, for example, Andres and I have done a lot of personality assessments, a lot of,
Mm.
um, we even did a brain scan last year.
Oh,
We
wow.
actually got our brain scanned.
What is
Um,
that? What's a brain scan?
it's yeah, so it's called if you're familiar with Dr. Amen, he's written a number of best-selling books on the power of your brain health and how do you really get your brain in the most healthiest way possible. Vitamins and these different natural ways and things of that sort. But anyway, he scanned you not he wasn't there, but you go to a clinic, there's clinics everywhere in the country, and you get your brain scanned to kind of identify like what is your brain makeup of, and where might you have some things that are getting in your way. So my brain scan told me that I had ADHD,
Mm.
um and I suspected I did, but I didn't actually suspect until Andressa kind of brought it to me. She's like, this is something you might want to look at. Anyway, long story short, me learning about myself, her learning about herself, has propelled our partnership even further, because the very things that we were getting frustrated about with each other, we've really learned to use as our, strengths, if you will,
Mm.
and really optimize. So now, am I going to do that with everyone in my life? No, that's a certain relationships that are at that caliber of transformation, right?
Yeah.
And I do take it very seriously with the work we're doing, and I want to impact as many women. I have to be my best self. Like I can't do that half-ass,
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, and I have days and moments that I am like, I'm just like, please God, give me a sign that I'm on the right path. um I'm not trying to say I'm on any way I have all the answers, but what I could tell you
Mhm.
is that when you're in a good relationship, a good partnership, or a growing partnership, is that when you're both willing to do the work, you may not go get your brain scanned together,
Mhm.
but are you willing to do like a personality assessment together? Are you willing to have honest conversations and transparent conversations saying, you know what? Really pissed me off when we were in that meeting, and I kind of felt triggered when like
Yeah.
having those conversations. You're not going to have them with everyone,
Mhm.
but the more you have them with people and you stand up for what you believe and you really get honest with yourself, people are going to want to work with you more because you're authentic.
Mm.
And so that's the crux of, I think, relationships is authenticity, being true to yourself and doing the work. Cause now I'm like, I have a coach. I have a vitamin regimen that I've been
Love
doing.
that.
It has helped me tremendously. Do I have moments that I'm a little disorganized? Yes. But I'm very aware, and I really appreciate my brain now
Mm.
versus getting frustrated with how my brain worked. I didn't, I wasn't optimizing it.
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but
No, no. By the way, I'm a personal development junkie. I invest a lot along with my partners on, like, literally we have like a mindset coach.
it's great.
Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's and regimen and everything.
You
So
need that.
nutritionists and my wife, like, it's just we are very big on that. So it's always fascinating, when you hear others. It's like, well, of course, there you go. There's another proof of concept right there.
Yeah.
It really is
Yeah.
that, right? So working on yourself, and then it will reflect with what you're doing, and it shows. I want to talk. Of course, you were here. We've gotten deep into again, the core values, because they do reflect, and you can see them all the business. And I love these conversations, honestly. That's, but now you're also an example, right? As far as you don't have it all figured out, which I love, because that's what we do in the lab. We experiment, fail, learn, repeat. Proof of concept. What proof of concept did you use? What is the real estate model that you use, right? You have the community. At the end of the day, you're also helping other investors
Mhm.
to invest. And what is this model? I know you and I talked offline. We do midterm rentals. We focus on a very specific niche. You got into a point where you have a scaling portfolio of 100 million plus. What is the fundamental model that you're using, and why do you choose that? Because people will start real estate and they'll say, what do I get started in? And that's just one out of the many things that is, as things, sometimes even a challenge of which model is the best. So which model to use and why?
So when my husband and I started
Mhm.
investing, we started with a duplex, and it was a dilapidated duplex,
Mhm.
and we renovated it, those kinds of things, had an evicted tenant. It was a whole fun first property experience. The next several years we got involved in various niches, right, which kind of diluted us in a sense. We
Mhm.
bought a commercial building, we bought raw land. And about 7 years into our business, we really doubled down and said, "What's the one area that we're really having the most success with?
Mhm.
And how do we really go all in on that?" And that was multifamily. More specifically, though, because multifamily is not all created equal.
Exactly.
We took small to mid-sized properties, dilapidated properties, in yeah, I'd say Class C neighborhoods
Mhm.
that were looking to develop, looking to grow, moving in that direction, and we renovate them and bring them up to the high standard and get the right tenants in. So it's the classic Burr strategy. Even on a duplex to a couple hundred units of a property, it was a very similar model.
Mm.
So that was our that was our kind of niche, taking really really dilapidated buildings and transforming the interior exterior to a stabilized asset that people want to live in and talk about, and there's kind of abundance around, and a quality of living
Yeah.
around. That's always been our thing, really transforming lives in a sense was our mission with DeRosa. That's been our focus, and we've done that in different markets, we've done that with different size properties, but I think the key is that, and the proof of concept is when you get really focused on what your yes criteria is. Like, what are you willing to say yes to?
Mhm.
And your deal criteria in a sense, and not say yes to everything. You are able to really kind of teach the universe what it is, what deals are you looking for? What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? And there's something really great that happens is that people start to give you those deals, not give them to you, but energy comes from focus and
Making a decision.
delineating. Yeah, so the proof of concept was for us focusing and really becoming really good at a niche. Now we have diversified,
Mhm.
in the last couple of years. We started a debt fund, and we lend that money to properties, other operators who are doing transformational work, or there's new construction and they're creating jobs for people, or if it's a new condo project, it's still transformational.
Mhm.
So it aligns to the greater mission, but you do need to pivot sometimes in business,
Yeah.
because we want to put our investors in great projects that are doing good for the community, but are also doing good by them and making money for getting their returns. So the proof of concept is to double down on what you need to be focused on
Yeah.
and be willing to adapt and pivot when necessary, as long as it still aligns to the mission. Which then gets me to InvestHER, and what we're up to is very similar in the sense of, like, we don't delineate from our mission or what we're up to. It might come and look different, but we're always like, the litmus test is our mission. Is this going to help women if we do this or that?
Yeah.
That really helps focus us.
Yeah. I'm curious, Liz, do you see, because this is a conversation I typically have, you look back and you're like, wow, look how far we've come. Um, but how much of that was one step at a time
Yeah, a
and
lot
we
of
make
it.
a decision? Or was it, no, actually, we are actually going to be very strategic and we're going to go into this model because we know that we can involve more people and etc. Like, I think what I'm asking is, do we
Yeah.
pick the multifamily route because we know the economies of scale and we know that we can raise capital? Or why not short-term rentals? Why not, fix and flipping? Why not, like, can
Yeah.
those
Why that
also
niche?
work? Or is there something that you see now or in hindsight that you're seeing that, that also, this whole debt fund thing, honestly, Ruben, also another way to go? Like, what is
Yeah. How
hindsight
do you
2020?
delineate?
How do you see it? And what have you learned along the way that either, solidifies or validates the path that you've chosen, or also has some hindsights in place?
Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, because people get overwhelmed with what niche should I get
Yeah.
into? What should I do? What shouldn't I do? Or even better, what market should I go into? That's the other $1 million
Right.
question. Um, I think often people aren't taking a moment, a pause, to say where do they really want to be from a
Mhm.
financial perspective, from a lifestyle perspective.
Yeah.
And so, if you said to me, I'm really looking to build long-term wealth, and I want to be able to pass along X number of properties or this amount in my net worth to my children
Mm.
in 10 years. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay. So then you work backwards and saying, what can help me get me there? Now, often people are like, oh, I'm going to wholesale and flip a bunch of properties, and then I'm going to transition all that over to multifamily and raise money. Well, I mean, listen, wholesaling is business. Flipping is a business in and
Mhm.
of itself. These are businesses in and of it themselves. So I'm not saying I didn't flip properties with the end goal to transition that into rental properties. But I will say that everything has its own focus. So it's a different outcome for me to go flip a bunch of properties versus buy a rental property. They're going to yield me a different result.
Mhm.
Um, so for those listening, you really want to get clear where, what are your financial goals? What do you bring to the table? What is it that excites you? Like the thought of being someone. I don't own any short-term rentals.
Mhm.
The thought of like having to be this concierge to people and respond quickly. I mean, I'm like, my mid 40s. I'm not the most technically savvy person, to be honest. I mean, like, not that I don't know how Facebook works, but I still couldn't bear my idea of having to deal with tenants and folks through an app and answer all their questions. Like I would go out of my mind. Or I would go have a property manager or have
Yeah.
somebody to support me or a VA. So when we do buy a vacation rental, I have that. But my point in saying all that is that it all has to also align with your time, with your money, with your expertise. Like, where do I want to be? Where am I? And maybe what niche could get me there in a simple and strategic way. We went down the path of raising money because we ran out of our own. Like
Mm.
that's why we raised money. It wasn't this like master plan of at the time. We're just like, we want to buy more property. We don't have it. It wasn't like, and then my husband ends up writing a book about raising capital.
Mhm.
It didn't start that way. Oh, I want to write a book one day. So no, it was just like, we want to buy our next property. We need to figure out ways to do that. And at the time, the idea of like, oh, somebody can lend us money. Oh, someone can actually, we could both be active partners and they put some money in and we do this and then they do this and we could be equity partners together.
Mm.
Like it just was a way to expand our portfolio, like literally deal by deal. It didn't go from 0 to
100%.
500 investors that we have now. It went from 2 investors, and we're like, they're making money too. And we're making money without any money out of our pocket. This is cool. This is cool. Let's do that again. And then we just did it in segues. And then we got a 10 unit and a 20 unit and a 40 unit. And we were very slow and steady growth. It didn't go from a duplex to a 400 unit. It didn't go that
Was
way. It
there
went very slow and steady.
was there a hockey stick moment that you
Yes.
remember? And just for context, I think it's important for us to realize when that happened in your journey. Was that like in a decade, 2 decades, half a decade? Just for context, I think sometimes we lose the context. We see you come on here and it's so inspiring, but I think it's important for us to understand the process behind that. At what point do you feel, if you recollect, was like a hockey stick event of like, wait, I think we're like onto something. This proof of concept is really picking up exponentially.
when we bought our first property outside of Trenton,
Mhm.
because Trenton was our focus. For those who are not familiar with Trenton, New
New
Jersey, it's the
Jersey.
capital of New Jersey, and it's
A lot of
it's
people
had
don't know
its
that, by the way.
yeah, it's had its really fair share of just a lot of tough moments. But anyway, my
Mhm.
husband and I
Yeah.
about 15 years ago started investing in the city, and we saw certain things working, we saw things that weren't working, and we really started to get momentum with bringing in a small group of investors into, like, these small partnership deals, active, where we were both active. They would, and so we said, what could we do if we got into something a little larger? And so we bought a 10 unit outside of New Jersey. I'm sorry, outside of Trenton. It was actually
Mhm.
in Ewing. It's right the town over, but it was like, compared to where we were, it was a really great community. It was like a step up, definitely from a, like, environment perspective. And then we said we can also put in a 4 unit, so it was 14 units. And I think we had to raise about 500,000. And we're like, oh, I don't know if we're gonna be able to, like, it was just like this enormous number at the time, right? And so we did it, and we were like, okay, so that's kind of, it was like our first bigger project, where it was our first
How
syndication
many
technically.
people would you say on average for the 500?
We
Do you
were
remember?
um
Like a dozens or half a dozen?
no, it was I want to say we were at about 7 or 8,
Okay.
around that.
Yeah.
Um, and it was non-accredited, but it was a syndication.
Mhm.
So we filed with the SEC, but it was a non-accredited. It was a pre-existing relationship, which
Good for
that
you.
that in a sense means, and
Mhm.
people that you had to have a relationship with, and make sure you do all your fact finding on SEC
Mm.
regulations. You don't want to get in trouble.
100%.
Um, but that was really neat, because what was created as, like, we're working with lenders here and there. We're working with this one person as a equity partner on this project, because we're both active. It was like our first, like, big boy, big girl project where we syndicated it. It was the attorney fees were very large. It was a big deal. And it just created this, like, wow, okay, we can pool money together and create a passive opportunities for people. They don't have to be as active as they've been. Huh, that's interesting. And that really created the momentum to continue to build more and more syndications. So, I think in a lot of ways we've had our share of mistakes. Like, I mean, we've been at this a long time, and in some ways I look back and go, wow, in some ways you could say we should have been further along than we have, or you could say, I'm so grateful for our journey, right? You saw perspective, right?
Absolutely perspective.
It's all perspective. And I am super grateful, because the amount of growth we've had in a short amount of time really was, like, quadrupled from what took us maybe, like, 10 years to get to.
Mhm.
And we just never gave up, Ruben. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, that's the other key, is that but you got to get better after you're not giving up. We're not doing the same things we were doing
Mm.
17 years ago. We're different people. We were in our 20s. I'm in my 40s now,
Good
right?
for
So what's
you.
important to me is different than it used to be.
Mhm.
Like, I love investing, but I love empowering more people to invest.
Yeah.
That's much more exciting to me
Mm.
than me going to buy my next deal. I mean, I love real estate. My husband and I are involved in different things, and passively investing with people and actively investing, but there's nothing like being able to, support other people in that journey too.
Love that. And you're doing an amazing job of that. And I think, honestly, the best is yet to come now, and you're getting the fulfillment behind the not just the numbers and the general ledgers and all that, right? You're actually also seeing the impact with the community, which I know, without going into detail, you and I were geeking out about that offline, of the power of community building. You said it, like, it's pretty fascinating, isn't it? And I think it is. It's the who's that you get to bring along the way, and the relationships that you form, and power to you for doing that. I think one of the things that I can definitely resonate with that you talked about is what excites you. I know that having different businesses, right? I had an agency that was, I couldn't do it with friends and family. And now this business that I do with my wife, and, literally family members and partners, it's just so fulfilling when you can actually pick a, an avenue that allows you to actually work with other people. And I think that's what matters too, right? You talk about wholesaling, flipping, those could be jobs, and there could be
Yep.
big businesses too.
Sure.
But then you think about the model and you say, hey, listen, this is going to allow me to interact. This is going to allow me to communicate, get on podcasts, empower people, see them win. And I think I'm so proud to see you here. I always get so inspired by those who are doing just that. So wanted to give a big kudos to you, Liz, for all that you're doing. The community, I've seen it in person myself. The investor community, how passionate people are, how driven they are, and I think iron sharpens iron, and if you've attracted the right folks in your community to be able to take that and that that leadership across the many chapters and locations that you have across the US, and it reflects well. That's one thing when you can you've done a good job when your brand carries on and shares the same core values when you're not there too. So good for you.
True. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So Liz, 20 years deep into this, you guys are still growing. What can I say that Liz was here, she was on a podcast, she said she would do it. What is the thing that's getting you out of bed
Mm.
now that you're like, Ruben, you're very intentional. I know you are. So why don't we just get it on the air here? You're here to hear first in lab. What
Oh,
is it
there
that
you
you want to
go.
put out there into the universe so that we can look out and support?
By when? Is there a certain date?
Ooh, see, that's how I know you're serious. Smart goals, smart goals. I like that. You tell
You
me.
got
I have no
um
parameters here.
something that is a goal that I have is I want to be on the Today Show.
On the what show?
I want to be on the Today Show.
Okay.
I want to be interviewed by Robin Roberts, and it's not about me wanting to be on the Today Show, right? It's about like I envision her saying, I'm so grateful to meet you because of the work your community is doing to support other women, and
Mm,
building wealth. Like that's so there's more like eyeballs on wealth building for women and, young women. What are the expectations being put upon them that we think of an investor, we don't think of a white male, we think
mhm.
of, but I know that takes eyeballs. I know that takes exposure. And I'd love to be on a platform where, the national media is learning about the power women bring to the table as an investor and in wealth building, and how we need more and more money in the hands of women. So, and then what do you do with that money?
Yeah.
Where do you go? What do you do? How do you reconcile the right approach versus should I go with this coach? It's like so overwhelming. But what community can I just get into and trust? That really would be super cool. So that's a big intention I have
I love that.
that I do visualize. And I don't know how that's going to happen,
No
Ruben,
need
but
to. You've
listen,
made
don't
the
need to,
decision.
you know?
Good for you. I love that. And
So anyway.
I'm smiling as you're saying that because I already know that it's already done once you made the decision. That's how it works, right? So I can't wait to see you on the Today Show. And
I love
you
it.
heard it here first.
I've never said that on a podcast. So
Listen, we brought that
I
energy
know.
today. I love it. Where can we tap in? I know that obviously, Liz, you're behind. The Real Estate Investor Show is one thing you do. You have a big social media following as well. Where can we at least follow your journey and keep in touch with what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. We have a very active Facebook community.
Yeah.
It's a group. We have about 16,000 women, safe space for women to ask questions, get support they need. And it's just InvestHER community. It's a Facebook group.
Yep.
That's a good place. You could always tag me there, say hello, say, hey, I heard you on Ruben's show. And I have a follow-up question. I honestly, no one takes me up on that, Ruben, but I would be happy to answer your question and jump in. I'm always looking at posts,
Good for you.
trying to contribute as much as I can. Yeah, and we have our big conference coming up. So June 2nd to 4th, just to share with any woman that's been inspired to I want to take action. I just don't know what to do. We created this enormous conference, not enormous, but it's our goal. We're headed towards, we have 35 companies coming, 30
Wow.
speakers, 3 days, 500 women. And it's going to be very incredibly transformational. We
I
have
love that.
Kim Kiyosaki speaking,
Wow.
keynoting. Sally Krawcheck, she is the founder of Elvest. It's a stock trading
Wow.
platform. So we have a lot of different types of investing that's going to be there. A lot of real estate, of course, but we'll have people talking about alternative business, investing in businesses. We have a really cool session called Deal or No Deal, where you actually analyze properties with the goal of doing seller financing. So you'll have
Mm,
we're kind of workshopping it. You go to conferences and you learn the information. This is where you're going to practice it. And
100%.
so that's what we're up to. We have mindful breaks. We have a lot of networking, like very mindful networking, a lot of sessions on all different types of topics. So I just invite all the women listening or the women that you know in your life to come out and play with us. We have a really powerful 3 days that we've put together, and doing great with growth. But yeah, would love to have you come out. So it's June 2nd to 4th in Austin, Texas.
You bet. That's Investor Con, right? And if I'm looking on the site here, I know there's the investorcon dot the real estate investher.com. Is that correct?
You got it. Yep.
Awesome. That's amazing. Definitely be there. Austin's an amazing place to be too. Great time of the year, June
Yeah.
2nd to 4th in Austin. So make sure we tap into that. I am so grateful for you coming into the lab and sharing with us, empowering all investors, and also firing up all of our women out there. Power to us, the women in our lives that are making things happen by choice, by law, and taking a page from your book. And I got to tell you, it's very inspiring to see you on this mission, and I cannot wait to see where you take this. So just want to give a big thanks again, Liz, for
Thank you,
coming on the
Ruben.
pod and coming on the show. And we'll make sure we tap in with you, follow you on social, join your Facebook community, and support the Investor Con 2024 in Austin, June 2nd to the 4th. Experiment Nation, thank you so much. And just like that, we are out. Experiment Nation, podcasting has changed the way we operate as real estate investors ourselves, and it can do the same for you. Podcasting has been the source of the masterclasses that we get thanks to the world-class real estate investors and practitioners and specialists that come into the lab from all realms, from short-term rentals to mid-term rentals to real estate syndications to even software as a service. Owners, founders, entrepreneurs have helped enrich our experiments by giving us the education, helping us build a network, and lastly, and most importantly, a brand association to open up multiple doors for our respective businesses. If you understand the power that podcasting can have and you know that you need one for your brand, please, you can rely on our team. InvestedTalent.com is my team and the team that helps this podcast, the Real Estate Experiment, become the fruition each and every single week to educate my community, build relationships on the air, and continue to build our brand. If you know that you need to do these same for your brand and you haven't pulled the trigger yet, maybe because you don't know how, our company, InvestedTalent.com, does the end-to-end from the time that you record to the time that it is published to even repurposing content on multiple social media platforms. That's what my team can do for you. Simply go to InvestedTalent.com and book a discovery call to see how my team can help you launch your podcast.